This week in games, let's predict what's going to happen at the Nintendo Direct. Embracer shuts down another studio. Miyazaki talks about what he could do better in his next game. And the most anticipated games coming out of SGF. This is the Two Penny Gamescast. What's poppin', players? Welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 204. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host. Say hello to the people, Connor Elliott.
Hello, people. I am now so full of energy. You know,
Yeah?
I usually come on this show on the piggy bank,
Yeah.
and I have been criticized by certain parties in
Yeah.
the past of not having enough energy. So
Uh-huh.
you're getting a new Connor. You're getting the personality of what I would be like if I did React videos all the time. I'm going to be so reactionary to these new stories.
Ooh.
It's going to be so crazy.
Yeah?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Connor, how's your week been, friend?
It's been good. Yeah, it's actually very good. Yeah.
Oh, good.
It's hard to remember because we start the new week, and so I'm in that mindset.
You're like, yeah, I'm in the new one. But
Yeah.
it's not that, I want to know how your last one was.
Good.
Good. Very good.
How was yours?
Stressful.
Ah,
But, it's fine. We're working through it. It's going okay.
that's life.
That's life.
As
It's okay
fun as
though.
it may seem.
We're grinding and we're thriving. Kind of.
Yeah, I was like,
Ladies
the last
and
part's
gentlemen.
a little bit of a stretch.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Two Penny Gamescast. Every week, me and Connor come to you with the nerdy news you need to know concerning the video game industry. We each come to you with two topics, 2 pennies, if you will, and we give you our 2 cents on them. Now, as a quick aside, ladies and gentlemen, we record this show on Mondays. And you can watch us record all of our podcasts live on Mondays, twitch.tv/2pennygames, Monday afternoons, in which we have a lot of fun. We record this news show, for example, any reviews that we are doing that week, and, of course, the Piggy Bank, which is our casual gaming podcast for our casual gaming friends, hosted by our good buddy, Phil Shoemaker. But one of our leading stories this week, in fact, our first story this week, is indeed the Nintendo Direct. We're going to be doing predictions. Now, as I said, we record this show on Mondays, but as you know, this show doesn't go out until Tuesday at 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/@2pennygames. So this episode will be live for exactly 1 hour before it is out of date. and then immediately everything we say will be proven right or wrong or whatever. So that's just kind of the way things go. We'll talk about the Direct in full next week, I'm sure, unless it's a bunch of nothing, which I don't think it will be. And yeah, so I guess if you're watching this late, just enjoy the hypothesizing while we can. And if you're watching this on time, join us with the hype train. Here we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I already said, this show comes every Tuesday, 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/@2pennygames, and mainstream podcast services of your choice. Make sure to like, subscribe, and drop in the comments down below any topic of conversation you want us to talk about. We would love to have an audience 2 pennies incorporated into the show, of course. And remember to follow us on all of our social medias, also down in the description below, alongside our TikTok page, which is doing great numbers this last month. So make sure you're getting hip to our funky chicken over there, as my dad would say. My dad always said he used to say hip to your funky chicken was like a thing they said in the 80s. And I was like, that's a weird thing to say, but okay. So that's that over there. And let's go ahead and jump into, Connor, our first topic of the day, which is going to be predicting the Nintendo Direct. Now, Nintendo posted today, take your time code, Nintendo posted today that from their Nintendo of America account is where we're pulling this from. Join us for a Nintendo Direct live stream focused on Nintendo Switch games coming in the second half of 2024. There will be no mention of the Nintendo Switch successor during this presentation. June 18th, 7 a.m. Pacific time, roughly 40 minutes. Connor, no Switch 2 at all, is what they're saying. Now, where does that set you with expectations and hype level for this Direct that we are getting tomorrow morning?
Well, we just had the Summer Games Fest last week, and that kind of laid out what we're going to be expecting for the rest of the year. It was kind of in the later half, getting a bit sparse, so that filled it out. But one of the things that's lacking is Nintendo titles. And so I feel like we can expect a couple of games, not a lot, but some heavier hitters. Maybe not the heaviest of hitters. There's been talk of a new Metroid game. We had talked a little while ago how that was. It seems like a good starting title for whenever they do the next Switch.
Yeah.
So but it still could come out.
Yeah.
Because we've been waiting on a new Metro title for quite some time now, and it might just be the time with Nintendo not really having any other big titles yet for it to come out.
Metroid Prime 4 is what you're referencing.
Metroid Prime 4, yes.
Yeah. So this is where things get a little tricky, right? Because very obviously it's the most open secret in the industry that Nintendo's got a new piece of hardware coming. Probably next year. They're not ready to talk about it yet. We'll probably talk about it later this year. October, November-ish, for launch in the spring, like they did with the first Switch, right? So now the question is, well, what are you going to talk about here? Because you're in a tricky spot where Nintendo is known for developing titles, having them done, and then waiting for release on them. Metroid Prime 4, we was announced. A while later, they said, hey, we're restarting development on that, and then they've been silent ever since, which I think is the right move, right? But now, clock's ticking. Sounds about right. The streets are saying this should be a pretty sizable, a pretty meaty direct. This is some big things are going to happen here. So now the question is, well, is Metroid Prime 4 going to be shown here and released within the year prior to a Nintendo Switch 2? Or is it going to be their cross-generational title between Switch 1 and Switch 2, a la Breath of the Wild?
Easily could be, because, this game would have been in the oven for a little bit.
Yeah.
It's hard to say whether they would have been making it with the Switch 2 in mind, or that came after development had already started and it was maybe too late to course correct. I think that really determines whether we will see it on this showcase. Aside from Metro, I think a game that's way more likely to show up, because our co-host on
let me stop you right there real quick. Do you believe them when they say no mention of a Switch successor?
Yeah, I don't believe... Nintendo's pretty open about that kind of stuff. I don't think they're ones to be like, hey, we're going to drop this big surprise, especially when it's so matter-of-factly beforehand, because if you want people to be, questing for if you are going to announce it, you would want that audience to come watch your show, not just dispel any rumor of that and possibly get less eyes on it.
My question is like, I'm not saying a big reveal of the Switch 2 or anything, but surely they're going to talk about it, like, in some breath. Like, it'll be an offhanded, oh yeah, and, we will be bringing it to Switch successor, whatever, when we are ready to talk about that XYZ thing.
I feel like that's a better marketing strategy when you're unveiling the new Switch, and you'll say, here are all these old games we also have, in addition to whatever new ones, since they'll probably be, they don't have a ton of titles for it.
Yeah.
So they'll want to, tell you the backlog of Switch games that'll be brought to it.
Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
We
will. Also, they could mention that with the compatibility.
Yeah.
Backwards compatibility with Switch. So,
yeah.
It's hard to say.
Yeah, Metroid Prime 4, I think, is a complicated one. Let me see the... focused on games coming in the second half of 2024. Now, this doesn't mean Metroid Prime 4 is not going to make it, even if it is a 25 game. They could still end their direct with Metroid Prime being re-revealed, and sort of give us maybe a gameplay look or a nice trailer for that. But it could still be next year's title. I don't know. Again, we're in a weird spot. It just depends on what Nintendo wants to do with that title. To put a cap on that. What was your other thing you were going to bring up?
Oh, I was going to transition over into the other big game people are hoping for. Phil, our friend and host of the Piggy Bank, is Hollow Knight Silksong.
Yeah.
People they were waiting for it with the Summer Games Fest. It never came. And so now the hope for it coming out this year has become pretty desperate in hinging it all on a Nintendo Direct. But whereas Metro's a little bit more up in the air.
Metroid.
I think, what? Metroid.
Stop saying Metro.
Metroid. Oid. No Oid. Doesn't really matter, does it?
Makes an entirely different franchise.
But Hollow Knight Silksong, it's slated for a 2024 release. Easily could not be. But if they did, start... The year's coming to a close. All the things are being announced. I feel like the studio would have come out and said, hey, we're delaying it till 2025, or it's coming out then.
Unless this is their announcement of it.
Yeah.
And saying, hey, I'll see us in February 25.
And they could, because like you said, it's only focused on games coming out this year.
Yeah.
But when you already have it up to bat and you've had it for so long, on 2024, it makes sense for them to be on like this new direct. Say, hey, here it comes.
This game was supposed to come, I think, in 22. So,
even more so.
Where are we with Hollow Knight? I don't know. Hollow Knight's one of those ones where it's just like it could be there, it could not be there. Who knows? It feels like it feels like it's time, right? Like this game has been in the oven for a long time. It's time to get a move on here, just so that we can move on from talking about it because we're tired of talking about it. I agree with you. If it was like a long way out, they probably would have said, "Hey, by the way, we're not showing anything. We're not ready." They probably would have said that weeks ago. So my bet is that it will be here. Will it be this year? That's a coin toss. And again, they could say it's for this year, and then a month away from launch, be like, "Hey, we have to delay till January, February." And it could just be because the back end of this year is filling up. We still have titles with question marks on them, mainly Indiana Jones, Avowed, titles like that. But they're still slated for this year. And
Avowed got a release date.
Huh?
Avowed got a November release date.
Have we? Oh, we've been had that release date.
Yeah, well, because it was like shaky on whether it was. They rescinded a tweet at something weird stuff happened, but then they confirmed it's November. The original date, November 12th, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Weird. All right. But still, like the back half of this year is filling up. We've got some games that come in post July. August, September, October, November, December. Well, December looks a little barren right now, so like maybe they'll launch there, but who knows? But if it's time, it's time, and I think we're definitely encroaching on it being time. So it would not surprise me if it would be here or if it came out this year. If it did, you should have followed my fucking advice on our fantasy critic, shouldn't you have, and waited for this for fucking direct before
Hollow
you
Knight
counterpicked it.
I didn't counterpick it.
You did counterpick it. Hollow Knight.
I thought I just counterpicked Black Myth Wukong, which I regret.
Why do you regret that?
Because I think it might be good. I think I might be... Because my reason for counterpicking that on our fantasy critic, which for those of you that don't know, it's basically fantasy football, but for video games.
Yeah.
It didn't have any gameplay. They kept saying it's coming, cinematic, but we didn't see anything from it. And now we finally got stuff just these past couple days ago.
We had a whole conversation in your room about how you counterpicked Hollow Knight, and I told you to wait until the direct. And you went, eh.
Can you drop counterpicks?
No.
Oh, well. I might be losing. Well, we'll see. My viability for the fantasy critic hinges on that.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. But, all right, I hope it doesn't come out. Guys, you've been making the game. It's probably going to be great. Don't release it. Please don't release it.
Just wait. Just wait a little longer for me, please. So, from there, now things get a little fun. A little wacky. What's coming to the Switch? What are we going to finish the legacy of the Switch off of? People have been talking forever about how there is a Legend of Zelda Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD versions just sitting there, just waiting for release. This is probably the time to get those, right? We're at peak Switch consumerage. You've got a bunch of 100 million plus Switches out there. Yeah, give us the Legend of Zelda titles that will grant quite a large portion of your audience some nostalgia.
It's still so weird to me that Skyward Sword was like the big one that they did, not Wind Waker or Twilight Princess, which are undeniably more well received.
Yeah, I played the first hour of Skyward Sword. Mm-hmm. Didn't have a good time. Didn't enjoy myself. But that I guess that's like the first hour of Zelda games usually aren't that interesting anyway. Mm-hmm. So there's that. Oh, I had a whole list of games that I wanted to throw at you, and I've forgotten them a lot now. Animal Crossing.
The last one came out a while ago.
Yeah, 2020. Mm-hmm. So been 4 years. They haven't done any major DLC or expansions or anything. They've done seasonal updates, which have been cute.
But they made a pretty big deal of this is the last new expansion.
I believe they said, hey, we're not doing anything. So I don't think this is the time to announce a new Animal Crossing. I think you wait for the next Switch, the next console for that. Mario. Is he here at all in any way?
I don't think so.
I mean, the best I think they've got a 3D Mario cookie. It's been, God,
2018 was the last
7 years. Yeah, or no, it was 2017 because it was the same year as Breath of the Wild.
Damn.
Yeah, so it's been almost 7 years since the last 3D Mario with Odyssey. I mean, unless you want to count like the 3D Land Bowser Fury thing. 3D World, excuse me. So there's that. That one I think you hard hold until the next console, which makes me wonder, okay, does Super Mario Wonder get maybe a level pack DLC or something? Some cool new levels or maybe a small little adventure within that game that you can play? I don't know. Mario Maker 2 maybe gets an update, but we haven't really seen anything for that game since launch, which is upsetting. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't know if Mario even shows his face. Now you start looking at, some of the spin-off titles and stuff. Mario Kart 8 is done. Obviously going to wait for 9 for the next console, right? That game sells too much to put it on this current version of Switch.
And then shift.
I mean, it might be a crossover title, but yeah, it's not coming this year at the very least. So there's that. A Mario sports game.
Yeah.
We've done golf. We've done tennis. We did strikers. Baseball. There's, that's the only one that I can think of that, like, hey, maybe we get like a Super Mario Sluggers game or something like that. Could see it happen. Again, not super interesting, but it is the type of game that would be turned around within a year.
Yeah. I think we'll see Tears of the Kingdom DLC, some kind of extra content for that.
Maybe, but I think it'll be light.
Yeah,
I can't imagine that it'll be anything substantial within that. You think maybe an update, some kind of casting or something for Zelda movie?
Yeah.
Maybe some kind of update for Mario Movie 2?
Yeah.
Maybe
more the Legend of Zelda one.
You think
Makes
so?
Sense. Yeah, because we've heard about it for a while. We just got that promo image. Did they give a release date for that or a window? No?
I mean, they like Hollywood puts things out like all the time, so it may have a date already, but like we don't have a trailer. Like the director just finished up with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, so I mean, sure, he may be jumping right into this one, but I imagine it's going to be a few years before that. But they were marketing the Mario movie years in advance.
I didn't know that the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is the same director for that. So yeah, most likely not.
No,
I know there's people out there in film and video games who are
the
able to
most
shell
I can
out
imagine
stuff,
is we've got a casting done. We've got a voice for Link.
But I just don't think that'd be showcased at the Nintendo Direct. That just doesn't seem their style. All of a sudden,
what they did for Pratt.
Movies. Is it?
Yeah.
Damn. Well, maybe like a star would make sense.
Yeah.
Rather than a whole casting.
Timothy Chalamet is Link. Think about it.
I mean, that's not out of the realm. That's actually very likely.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
I got Fire.
That I was curious about that. No, I don't think a new game, of course, but Engage getting a DLC seems likely, right? It was last year. It seems kind of late now, but
I don't really see them doing DLC for that game.
No,
I don't think it hit hard enough to justify spending more time on DLC.
Okay,
it's already kind of like a celebration of Fire Emblem. It seems like it'd be very easy to just do like here's this, like they did in Awakening. You could recruit like Ike. I think you could get Marth. Other characters you can get, definitely. Roy. You have to be able to get Roy. Either way, they like going in and doing like, hey, remember Fire Emblem? We're a series, which Engage seems like it would do that, but it's already filled to the brim.
Well, I mean, we're too early for another one, right? Like
that's why I don't think it's going to show up, but it easily could be just it's Nintendo
or a spin-off title of some kind.
Yeah. They could have multiple games working though. 100%. Really, go anywhere.
So it gets tricky with that. Luigi's Mansion 2 update. Just hey, reminder, this is coming.
Did we ever get anything for Dead Cells 2 at another showcase? I feel like we did.
Did they announce a Dead Cells 2?
I thought there was a second one coming out.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Are you thinking about the Shovel Knight story?
No. Yeah, there has to be.
Because that team is doing the Rogue Prince of Persia right now.
I guess not. That's one of those things that I guess I just like
made up in your
locked
head?
Up on my head.
Yeah, that's crazy. Now Dead Cells 2 might be happening, but not right now. So yeah, and then I mean, you look around at the state of Nintendo right now, and it's like, what else could we even possibly have coming down the pipeline? I mean, at this point now, we're just hypothesizing of what else could even be there. Splatoon, maybe another piece of DLC announcement or something, or some kind of competitive. Splatoon 3 will have an update of some kind, I'm sure, and it'll be the part where we all tune out and stop paying attention, right? Because this is just what they do.
Yeah. But I mean, the problem, the crux of the issue with theorizing about this direct is the element of the next Switch makes it unsure about what games they would want to save for it, which games they want to end the current Switch's life cycle on. You know, Nintendo's weird. They do weird stuff. So it's kind of hard to predict.
40 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a substantial amount of time, and there's going to be more than what we've already talked about there already, unless they do 15 minutes of Splatoon, which they're not, you know, they've done before, you know. So we're going to find out. But yeah, I feel like this will be quite a substantial thing. I just don't think anything is a lock outside of, I think, the Legend of Zelda ports. Probably, you could probably lock those in as probably going to happen. But Metroid Prime 4, who knows? The other one, Hollow Knight, again, who knows? If Hollow Knight's going to appear this year, it would be on Nintendo, I feel. So yeah, now it's just a dependency on, does that happen or not?
We'll find out tomorrow.
Indeed.
And you will find out if you're watching this an hour from now.
And of course, ladies and gentlemen, we will be doing a reaction stream and recording of the Nintendo Direct, 9 a.m. Central Time. So make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube and follow us on Twitch.
I will not be there because some people have jobs and they have to work in the morning. They don't get to sleep in and just do whatever they please in the morning, fondle themselves.
I literally picked up an extra shift tomorrow, you fuckface.
You never have worked that in the morning, so you're probably lying.
I'm doing the most amount of work tomorrow out of anybody.
I have to edit a video when I get back. After working outside in the sun with a bunch of. I can't say my.
You want to count number of videos edited in the last week? That's what you want to do? We're talking about videos edited every week.
We're talking about.
That's what you want to do?
We're talking about.
You want to count that?
We're talking about day.
You want to bring it to that?
I didn't say you're trying to change the framing of what I said.
I do all my editing on Tuesdays, Connor.
No.
Moving on, topic number 2. Connor, this is going to be your first topic of the day. It just never gets any easier, does it?
No, it does not. We have an article from IGN from Ryan Dinsdale. Embracer shuts down, shocker, Alone in the Dark developer Pieces Interactive. Alone in the Dark developer Pieces Interactive has been shut down by the now famous Embracer Group after the game failed to meet expectations. A statement on the developer's website lists a 2007 to 2024 lifespan for Pieces Interactive alongside the message, quote, "Thanks for playing with us," end quote. It also offers a short history of the studio before a dedicated paragraph comments on its acquisition by Embracer Group, which in the last year has also shut down developers Free Radical Design, Onoma, and Volition Games, amid layoffs affecting more than 1,000 employees. Quote, "In 2017, Pieces Interactive were acquired by Embracer Group after working with the expansion for Titan Quest Ragnarok, and third expansion for Titan Quest Atlantis," the Post said. Our last release was the reimagining of Alone in the Dark," end quote. The survival horror game, which launched in March 2024 to middling reviews, endured a, quote, "softer than expected performance and performed below management expectations," according to a statement from Embracer made after it reportedly made a round of layoffs at Pieces Interactive. Pieces Interactive joins an increasing list of video game studio closures and layoffs that have been plagued the industry for the past 2 years. Embracer has caused many of these, having cut thousands of staff since the collapse of a $2 billion deal in 2023. It also sold the likes of Borderlands developer Gearbox Software and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake studio Saber Interactive ahead of announcing a split into 3 separate companies. With Pieces Interactive, as it said, middling reviews for Alone in the Dark, probably even worse sales.
I didn't even know what happened.
Yeah, it really went under the radar. I would like, for many other, publishers, I would say sometimes this is how business works. You got to take the hit. It didn't do well.
Tough times.
Yeah. Sad. But Embracer, as it said, has done this over and over and over again. So you can't even give them that benefit of the doubt because chances are they probably would have, canned it anyway. Reviews aside, if the sales weren't meeting the expectations, whatever those expectations were, it would have still gotten the boot.
There's no way they thought they were going to do like Resident Evil numbers off of it.
No way they
There's
thought
no
that,
way they
no.
thought that. So let's say even the expectations were realistic. $2 billion deal falls through. Now, it doesn't matter what the expectations are. The game just isn't going to give you what you need because you were expecting money on the back end. Again, like Embracer just did really, really bad business in the 20s. Or at the beginning of the decade, and now they're fucking paying for it, and they're fucking us up left and right. Or I guess the end of the last decade too, because they got acquired in 2017.
Yeah.
But it hurts to see a dev studio that's been around for a cool minute, 2007 to 2024, 17 years is a hell of a run, man. And for them to fall victim to this giant corporation that clearly doesn't know what they're doing again, for this to happen is upsetting, and it's frustrating, and it leaves us, the player or the consumer, feeling helpless because we want these studios to live. We also want good games, and we also have to balance the cost of these games and what they mean to us and so forth. So,
yeah,
salute to those who worked there. Sorry that this happened, and Embracer just continues to be just this soul-sucking cancer on the industry.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, but I beat you to it.
I know you did, you scum fuck. My issue is they just buy studios and then they close them down. Just stay out of it. Don't buy things. You're shit. You're always been shit. I don't even remember a time you weren't shit. It's just, that's what really sticks in my craw the most. Just that it didn't need to happen if they just stayed away from acquiring studios. But because their greed got ahead of them, everything's screwed up, and now innocent people are paying for it.
Now we're looking at these other examples of what's going on, and a bunch of the announcements and stuff that come out of Summer Game Fest and SGF and so forth. You look at what Blumhouse is doing, and supporting a league of independent studios and just publishing for them and saying, hey, you guys know what you're doing better than us. We have no idea. We make movies, we don't make games. So here, you guys make games, go make games, and we're gonna fund you. That's great. You look at what the Among Us devs, Innersloth, is doing with their Outer Sloth program and saying, hey, let's give back, let's feed back into the community. You love to see it. This is an example of, if you are trying to break into a space and do something that you've never done before, you do it this way. You don't just buy out a studio and expect them to churn out gold for you. That's not how this works. Start small, publish a couple of titles, and build from there. You look at what... It's funny to even bring this up as an example, but what Video Game Donkey is doing with Big Mode, and how Animal Well was met with huge critical success this year, and I'm sure because it was Donkey's name attached to it, got more financial success than it ever would have gotten without him. That's how you do it. Start small, find titles, find teams that you believe in, and fund them. Don't own them, because when you own them, that means it's like it is all based upon your success and failure as a leader. If you simply are just funding them and publishing for them, then the deal goes through, and then maybe that team can find a different publisher after your deal is done, or they fall to the wayside because of their own faults or something like this. Now, granted, I don't love putting all the onus on the little guy, but clearly giving the little guy up to the big guy is just causing the little guy to die.
Yeah,
so.
But Tavin,
I want to use this as a moment to salute those who are seemingly doing it right.
But you say that, but Embracer actually did do something right. They split their company into 3 different sections.
Yes,
and
they did.
That's going to turn everything around.
And one of those sections is just going to extort Lord of the Rings until we all fucking melt away and die.
It'll be beautiful.
One thing you can also do as a consumer, Connor, to help kind of support these little guys and show interest in these things is wishlisting titles on Steam, on PlayStation, things like that. Let publishers know what titles you're interested in and want to see more from these smaller developers. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing a lot of coming out of SGF. Moving into our third topic of the day, my second penny of the day, Astro Bot beats Doom as the #1 wishlisted game of the Summer Games Showcase. Now, of course, this is a games industry article from Christopher Dring. Astro Bot is the winner of Summer Game. Here, let me
zoom out. Oh, that too.
Get over here, right here, and let me widen up the thing just so that we can see better. There we go. Astro Bot is the winner of the Summer Game Showcase so far, with the most wish lists of all games shown and announced over the past 2 weeks. The data comes from IGN Playlist, which is a backlog and play activity tracker that is available on the web and via a mobile app. The chart below is based on the purchase intent of over 43,000 gamers and factors in new wish lists from May 30th, the day of PlayStation State of Play conference, to June 12th. The interest in Astro Bot may come as a bit of a surprise. After all, Sony stated earlier in the new year that it didn't plan to release any major new titles based on existing IP this year, and this game is due September 6th. Therefore, it's likely even PlayStation had modest expectations for the game. But Astro Bot is the successor to Astro's Playroom, an extended tech demo that was included with every PS5 sold, over 56 million units so far. As a result, Sony has exposed the Astro series to a very large audience already, and we might just be seeing some of that audience returning for the sequel. PlayStation may hold the top spot, but the rest of the top 10 is dominated by games that featured in Xbox's showcase. Number 2 spot belongs to Doom: The Dark Ages by Bethesda, which opened Microsoft Show. The shooter is also coming to PS5, so has a larger addressable market than some of the other Xbox games in this list, such as Gears of War E-Day at number 3 and Perfect Dark at number 4. And then the article does go on to mention that because it only mentions titles that were announced, you get your most wish lists when a game gets announced, right? But because of the way the dates are held up, titles such as Assassin's Creed Shadows, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 fell to the wayside because all of their wish lists happened before the weeks that we're counting here, the 2 weeks that we're counting here. But
Astro Bot coming out.
Astro Bot is showing up, and I think that's exciting. And that's something you do hear from smaller devs and even in the showcases, they say, hey, wish list us on Steam, do this, that, and the third. This allows us to show interest and just give a cheap and easy way to say to publishers and developers, hey, we want this, we want more of this, give them the funding they need, X, Y, and Z, reasons and stuff like that. So the more you wish, it's a practice I've never really done, but I think I'm going to start doing because there are titles I want to see. There are things I want to see. I'm also thinking about starting to put little 4 or 5 star reviews on the PlayStation Store, just to kind of just put some kind of feedback back to the corporate giants of hey guys, more of this. Give me Sly 2 Band of Thieves, please.
So sad.
Hey, I'm getting it. So who's the real laughing stock here, Connor? You know what I mean?
The people that say you would not get it.
Astro Bot, impressive that it's ranked number 1 in the most wish lists, especially because it's only coming to PlayStation 5. It's a 3D platformer, which is a genre that you see less and less of as the years have gone on. But I kind of feel like it's kind of come back around, and now it's a genre that is starting to become desirable again. And there's a want from gamers for games to come back to a simpler time or just a more fun time. Not everything needs to be a gritty, M-rated first-person shooter.
And, I think that's the key at why it got the number 1 spot. Because, sure, platformers have kind of not been as forward in the industry anymore, but I feel like every single time they're well received. Because it's a game, it's easily marketable. And, even aside from just the type of game it is, a game like Astro Bot that's, using its IPs, PlayStation IP specifically, to frame the game, gets people who say, I like I like Bloodborne, I like Uncharted, and then they just feed into that.
What percentage of the Astro Bot crowd do you think is coming for the one Bloodborne hunter reference?
The fact it's on PlayStation and it's Bloodborne, and it's always complained
that wasn't my question, Connor.
What's that?
My question is, what percentage of the Astro Bot audience is coming for the Bloodborne reference?
Not much. I didn't come to it for it. So, I think that this is a very easily marketable game.
Yeah.
And so it's not really a big surprise that it got the number 1, especially because it's E10. You said it's not a dark
over games like Doom, which is coming to everything. That's impressive.
Yeah, it is. It still is, regardless. But there's a lot of different factors, rating,
and Doom is a more established IP.
Yeah, beating Doom's the most substantial thing.
Yeah.
I think it did because of it being such a household name. And Astro Bot basically being an untapped character in PlayStation's catalog, which they've only really decided, we have something here. And people like Astro Bot. I've never seen a negative reaction to that little robot guy. So when he's the face of your game, pretty easy to say, get your eyes on it.
He's cute.
Yeah.
And him putting the little wigs and hats and beards on him and stuff, it's cute. it looks like a modern day Sackboy in a way that, like, I don't think Sackboy can, like, fully connect it the way that Astro Bot is seemingly like he's going to be able to. And I think it's because Sackboy is a little harsh on the eyes with the brown, like, woven thing or whatever, you know? Like,
only so much you can do.
He's just not a very pretty character, you know? But, like, he's cute, but he's just not very pretty. Astro Bot is pretty because he's sleek and so forth.
And allows you to add those customizations on there because of that sleek design.
Indeed, yeah. So, yeah. Very impressive for Team Asobi. I'm personally very excited for Astro Bot. I think it's my most anticipated game of the year right now. And so, yeah, I'm gonna, after this podcast, I'm gonna go load up my PlayStation. I'm gonna wishlist that game and a couple other games.
You don't need to wishlist this one, Tavin. It's already gotten the eyes on it.
I'm gonna give it more, Connor. We could always support more.
We can,
indeed, and that's a nice way. If you can't support out of pocket buying a game, the best way, of course, is to buy a game at launch. You know, full price. Right away, give them instant feedback of, hey, I like this, I want more of this with money. That's the best way to do it. But of course, not everybody can buy games at launch all the time, you know? So buying it at discount, sure, yeah, still helps. Any little bit helps, right? But if you can pre-release, give it a wish list, or post-release, give it a little review. Give it a little 5 stars on whatever storefront you want to use, you know? Stuff like that helps.
A little bit of control is better than no control.
Exactly. So you take use of the tools you have at your disposal. Moving on, Connor, to our final topic of the day, your second penny of the day. This is something that I'm tangentially aware of, but I want to hear what you have to say about it and what you're bringing to the table here. So go ahead and take it away, my friend.
Well, we have an article here from Games Radar.
That's the wrong camera.
From Anna Koselk. From Software's Hidetaka Miyazaki addresses recent mass developer layoffs, assuring Dark Souls and Elden Ring fans, quote, that's something I would not let happen. Amid thousands of recent video game developer layoffs, From Software president Hidetaka Miyazaki reassured fans that he won't let the same unfold at the iconic studio behind Elden Ring. The past couple of years, despite boasting some monumental game releases like Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield, have been anything but kind to many developers. From mass layoffs at EA to hundreds more at Take-Two Interactive, various companies have seen countless members of staff made redundant in 2023 and into 2024. News of such cuts is always disillusioning, to say the least, but there are still studios finding success, retaining staff, and even growing despite industry hardships. One of those is none other than From Software, the company behind Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Armored Core, and most recently Elden Ring. Speaking to PC Gamer in a recent interview, Miyazaki shared his thoughts regarding these widespread layoffs. Quote, speaking to myself and this company, I want to say that this is not something I would wish on the staff at From Software in a million years, says the beloved dev. I'm pretty sure our parent company, Kadokawa, understands that and shares that view. In fact, not only has From Software remained unaffected by the consistent waves of layoffs, the company has actually grown. Since starting on work on Elden Ring, the studio has expanded so much that it's able to comfortably develop 2 titles at once, as demonstrated by Armored Core 6. Miyazaki cites late Nintendo president Satoru Iwata while sharing his thoughts on layoffs. Quote, I think it was the old ex-president of Nintendo, Iwata-san, who said that people who are afraid of losing their jobs are afraid of making good things. I'm paraphrasing that, but I totally share this view. The From Software dev continues, assuring fans that the corporation overseeing his own team is aware of his thoughts. I think it's true, and I think people at Kadokawa, our parent company, understand that I hold this view very strongly. While we can't say 100%, we can't say with complete certainty what the future is going to hold for From and Kadokawa, at least as long as this company is my responsibility. That's something I would not let happen, Miyazaki concludes. So hopefully our players and our fans can take a little bit of assurance from that. I think it's safe to say that the Souls community certainly does take comfort in knowing the mastermind devs behind their favorite games aren't at risk, or at least I definitely. Since it was an interview, there was some other interesting things that came out from this. So I'll go on to another Games Radar from Hirun Cryer. Hidetaka Miyazaki sparks hope for better co-op and future FromSoft games. Says they'll consider ideas like Elden Ring co-op mode with 3.7 million downloads.
Co-op
mod with 3.7 million downloads. Elden Ring's director has commented on the game's uber-popular seamless co-op mod, saying it's the sort of idea From Software might even consider implementing in future games. With over 3.7 million downloads, the seamless co-op mod on Nexus Mods is one of Elden Ring's most popular mods by far. It's easy to see why. The mod removes all co-op barriers and restrictions so that it's theoretically possible to play the entire RPG with a friend, from the tutorial right up to the final boss. It's seamless in name and in nature. With that in mind, PC Gamer asked Elden Ring director and From Software studio head Hidetaka Miyazaki for his opinion on the mod and what it does for the RPG itself. Quote, "It's definitely not something we actively oppose or want to downplay wanting to go through the whole game together," Miyazaki said of seamless co-op's grand ambitions. In terms of where we were with Elden Ring, it was simply a case of wanting that more loose, casual style, drop in, defeat a boss, drop out. It doesn't put any technical restrictions on the player. It just sort of lets them complete this focus and then move on, so to speak. The Elden Ring director continues. Elden Ring's co-op is very much in keeping with From Software's tradition in the Soulsborne games, bar a few exceptions like summoning pools. Players are summoned in to defeat a boss or explore an area, and once said task is complete, they're summarily kicked back out to their own world. It's meant to be a relatively short-lived experience, something that the mod obviously overhauls in every way. Quote, that's not to say we won't consider other ways like you and your friend played from beginning to end, total co-op. That's not to say we won't consider ideas like that with our future games, Miyazaki concludes. It's far from a promise that seamless co-op might be implemented in a future From Software game, but it's definitely a promising start. So, I'll tack onto this real quick, just because I found it was interesting. Miyazaki says that his ultimate RPG has not yet been made. But it's coming. It's getting there. Which people were surprised Elden Ring's not that. I'm looking forward to that. Side tangent. But, I mean, other than that, it's good that we're getting some kind of, confirmation from Miyazaki himself that layoffs won't happen, going back to the first story.
Well, put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly. That's, it's nice to say those things, but it also puts the onus of, well, if you do okay layoffs, and they happen.
We saw what just happened with Xbox. All their talk about how much they care about their studios,
Exactly.
So.
The one saving grace that From Software has.
And I also want to put on From Software, really well known for having a lot of crunch. So, okay, yeah, you're not laying your people off, but you're not treating them super well either.
Yeah.
So,
layoffs are worse, but crunch is still a problem.
Yeah.
It's just been overshadowed by all
I'm not in the business of comparing bad workplace environments.
I just think losing your job is worse than working hard at your job. As a general thing. Some people's lives hinge on having a job in the first place.
Sure, yeah, but I mean, both suck, and I don't want either of them to happen. And we live in a world where we can stop both of them from happening.
It changes when it's down to individual people, of course. But the thing that From Software has to make those words hold more weight, and it's kind of an exception that they occupy in the gaming space, they've hit their stride with the kind of games they want to make. They made Armored Core 6, which was the biggest diversion from it, but, you had Sekiro, Bloodborne, all of the Dark Souls, now Elden Ring, that all occupy a pretty similar space with how they play. It's a good groundwork to go off of, and they're able to extend out to do cool things with that, but it allows for them to have more security than someone like, throw something out there, fucking BioWare. Yeah. BioWare, they had their IPs, but they kind of innovated with things, they changed things up, and it kind of made them lose their vision. Whereas From Software doesn't seem to be going in that direction. Kadokawa, they probably share that belief with Miyazaki, partly because they think they've hit their thing with the games they're making right now. And also, Japanese studios have proven to be more resistant to just mass layoffs or shutdowns in comparison to more Western-based devs. It's not unheard of, but Nintendo comes into mind where the CEOs took a pay cut to prevent layoffs from happening. Would this same thing happen here? It's debatable, but at least it's some kind of confirmation that it's not imminent.
Well, it instills hope that, hey, all right, these guys seem to be doing things right. We want them to be doing things right because they're currently the industry's golden child. And so you just, you hope that they continue down the path of doing things right. This gets tricky because life throws a lot of curveballs at you. What happens when FromSoft misses? We haven't seen that yet since they've started really with Dark Souls. You could argue Dark Souls 2, but that game was still successful.
Yeah.
So they have not missed yet. What happens when they do? that's when things get a little tricky and we have to like make some decisions, and it may not be the grandest decisions in the world, but hopefully they're also putting themselves in a position where they can take a hit, where they can take a loss, or maybe they can even take a couple losses in a row without having to worry about things too much. You would hope so. You hear, we don't have to speak to Elden Ring's success. And, the numbers sold and the expectations surpassed and yada, yada, yada. But the legs on that game are also impressive. You look at what Kai Cenat did, the popular Twitch streamer, did just last month. Mm-hmm. I think it was last month, maybe a month before, where he had like a week-long Elden Ring stream where he just played the game on stream and didn't stop until he beat the game, which was really, really impressive. And he garnered a lot of attention, a lot of eyes. And I know talk around SGF from people who work at Bandai Namco and Elden and FromSoft were saying, hey, yeah, he did a lot to like, we saw an explosion in sales 2 years after the game came out. And what a perfect time that happened, coincidentally, right before they put out their major expansion. So, their expectations for what Erdtree is going to do has now grown as well. Even despite the fact that, like, I'm sure they had their expectations set pretty realistically, and that realistic expectation was still probably pretty high.
Most players probably would have tried to do the DLC.
Yeah, well, we're like it's being treated as a Elden Ring 2 or like an Elden Ring 1.5. Mm-hmm. Like not a full like new game, but it's going to be sizable, and you can kind of treat it almost like a new game. So that's really fun and impressive. To speak to your point, Connor. Yeah, they've hit their stride. They know their formula. They know how to do things. They know how to do what they do very well. But I love they're still willing to experiment. They're still willing to try new things. They're still willing to take criticism and look into the community and go, well, what does the community want from our games? Oh, well, there's this really popular co-op mod. We play around with co-op and stuff in our games, but we don't really do it to the lengths that like players seem to want us to do it. So maybe that's something we incorporate in the next game, probably in Elden Ring 2. Is we figure out how to incorporate co-op a little bit better and so forth. So
not even just co-op, but multiplayer in general.
Yeah.
I remember in the days of Dark Souls, PvP has always occurred, but I vividly remember, because it was my own personal experience playing Dark Souls 3, going to areas where there was high amounts of PvP going on, and in particular there was this one area that basically had an arena. It wasn't exactly one, but it served as one. And I would join into other people's games, and there'd just be a whole score of players, like standing up on the elevated platform, watching a fight go on, and then they would change out and alternate as they saw fit, with the host standing off to the side so people don't get booted with him dying. And very few times can I say a game has players that go to the links that FromSoft players do.
That's
to go play
incredible.
It's so cool. It was such a cool time. And you actually see like some PvP stuff in Elden Ring really pop off. It looks sick as hell. The problem is, as this mod kind of showcases, they don't really plan their games around co-op or multiplayer. So that is probably one of the best directions they can go in with future titles. Not necessarily make multiplayer games, since it seems like even though that'd be interesting because they would be experimenting, it would bring some uncertainty, breaking their formula, and they don't make multiplayer games, so solely multiplayer games.
It kind of keeps that spirit of alive that you and I have been lamenting on the podcast, that we are nostalgic for the era of great single-player games with kind of tacked on multiplayer type components, but sometimes those multiplayer components would be really good and would hit really hard. It's kind of aligned within that spirit, it's a little janky, it doesn't work, exactly the way you really would think it would or want it to, but it does work, and it allows us as players to kind of create moments and worlds and eras of these games that matter to us. For us, we are Mass Effect 3 babies. We're we played the fuck out of that Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. So good. And there were a bunch of other titles like that as well that we also played around with and did fun stuff in the multiplayer for these games as well. Last of Us is another example, and there's a couple others in there as well. But FromSoft is kind of, I think, navigating the industry in a way to where they are almost able to kind of bring that back, where they're saying, well, we're focused on our main game. That's our focus, and we're going to put that out there. But as we continue to go and continue to grow, we are seeing opportunity to kind of incorporate these new ideas and incorporate these new systems that maybe we aren't super familiar with, but we're willing to learn and we're willing to take note and figure out how to do it better in all these different ways. And we are watching the community and what they're doing with mods and such, and learning how to implement that into our own stuff. That's a sign of great art. That's a sign of great direction, and that's a sign of great leadership. And despite the success, and I'm sure there's still ego in the room, but it shows that they are at least humble enough to know they don't have all the answers, and they're willing to continue to learn. I'm sure they're also at the same time going, yeah, but we made Elden Ring, So
hey, all these people are closing and downsizing. We increased our staff. We're expanding,
and that's impressive and worth acknowledging and so forth. But I also appreciate that they're also at the same time going, oh shit, you guys want that? Oh, fuck, how do we do that? Do you know how to do that? I don't know how to do that either. You don't know? All right, well, I guess. All right, load up a YouTube tutorial real quick. Let's figure out how to do that.
Hey, just don't take the path of Icarus. Don't fly too close to the sun. Hubris.
My only thing about it is, I was watching you play Elden Ring in preparation for the DLC this week, right? And I walked in and I was watching you fight some mini boss or whatever, nothing really important or whatever. And it was a horseback fight, and you and I were lamenting about how the boss fights in that game on horseback aren't very interesting and really pretty easy. As soon as you find the pattern, you just kind of swerve in and out and do
it. Runs.
You're basically just kind of waiting the boss out until, one of you drops dead, And we kind of discussed game development wise, why is it like that? And you go, well, all right, well, this is the first game with a mount, and it's the first game with a jump from this team. Sekiro obviously had a jump. And I think the experience they had in Dark Souls. Did they do the Bloodborne one? Or I guess that was still on one team, and then Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro split off? No?
Hard to tell at some
Hard
points.
to tell?
I feel like the people who made Sekiro also made Elden Ring.
It's hard.
Yeah.
No. Because they went off and did Armor Core.
Oh, yes, they did do that. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah. So, Sekiro and Armor Core, you look at that game and they go, oh, well, the fights account for verticality in a way that the fights in Elden Ring kind of don't. I'm painting with a broad brush, but you would probably agree with me in that
I would.
The jumping mechanic isn't really taken advantage of from a boss design perspective.
There are multiple points where I think I can jump over something, and certainly that does matter sometimes, particularly with one of the final bosses, who I consider the best boss fight in Elden Ring.
Yeah,
but you're right. And for most of the time, they do not take advantage of that. I think even more so because I think that just takes a little bit of tweaking.
Yeah,
to do right.
That's oh shit, we didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The horse combat is where it starts. Like, you have to make a whole entire basic different system.
Yeah.
On how you operate in the game. And that's a heavy task. It obviously won't be coming in any form with Elden Ring or the DLC. So the next game is, I think they've gotten the idea of mounts. They've gotten to like the idea of mounts, just like I do. Because I've said it before, I think Torrent's probably the best mount in gaming. The more I play it, I'm just like, it so seamlessly goes across the landscape and does what you need him to do. But combat, it does feel janky. I dodge an attack and then I heavy attack.
It feels like you're manipulating the game in a way that the game doesn't want you to.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's just, I think it's an oversight of them not having the experience of knowing what to do with the mount. And nice for the future if they capitalize on it. But I don't really know what form that'll entirely take.
But within that same breath, okay, we've done the mounted combat. We've implemented jumping into our game now. So we've got a little bit of everything going on at once, and we're learning from all these things and how we can incorporate in design. They continue to develop that idea and get better. Have that same mindset with things like multiplayer, things like co-op, things like competitive play of some kind. Figure out, how do we balance armor sets and weapon sets and the variety of all those, and how do we get those to work in clashing with each other? Or how they work together. How does progression work co-op wise? When you beat a boss, who gets the reward? The guy who does the most damage? The guy who gets the final kill? Do we get an even reward between the two regardless? How does that work? What what is a seamless co-op world and how do we implement that into our game? When you drop in, drop out, how do you continue to tail your experience through that? Because don't get me wrong, if you're in, or correct me if I'm wrong, if you're in someone else's world, you're not gaining experience, right?
It's been so long since I've jumped into it. I think you do, but I don't think it's the full experience.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely, it's all based around if the host dies.
And you're not if we both start a new game and I go and jump into your world and we go and beat Margit, we then have to leave your game, come back to mine, and then make that same progress again. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So how do we get it to where we can kind of do this together? Borderlands does this very well. Mm-hmm. Borderlands 3 specifically did it so stupendously well that it's kind of the gold standard of how to do seamless drop in, drop out co-op, shared world type stuff.
I'll ask you to explain, because my example was going to be Baldur's Gate 3, just in terms of you being able to go through the entire game, all experience shared and whatnot. But it has an issue with when you have the team that you start out with, that's it. You can't add a new player with their own original character. They have to use like presets.
You have to use one of the other characters to implement another one that's joined your game. Baldur's Gate 3, I think, is a fine example, but it's janky. Mm-hmm. But I think the reason Baldur's Gate 3 is so janky is because of its focus on narrative. It doesn't treat different players who are controlling different characters as different people. Mm. They are all the player character, you know? So it makes it difficult when I'm doing choices that I would do, but Phil happens to walk ahead faster than me and trigger the cutscene that is important for the romantic relationship that I'm building. So now he's making those choices and I'm not. And then the progression of how characters feel about the avatar are complicated.
Which at that point I temper expectation.
Yeah.
And just say, okay, this is a game where I don't give a shit about the other party members. It's just me and my friends who are playing. You know?
Yeah.
But
are we still talking about Baldur's Gate?
Yeah.
Okay. Reiterate that, because I don't understand what you're saying.
All of the stuff that with dialogue and like character relationships, I just throw out the window. You know, the only time it really becomes an issue is when you're dealing with like no, because then even it can
that's weird, because that's why I'm playing a game like Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah,
but
that's why you temper your expectations about what you're getting out of playing with friends. You change it.
Yeah.
But I do agree, it doesn't change the fact that it is.
I guess
janky.
It becomes less about the characters and it becomes more about the quest.
Yes.
Okay,
that's how I frame it in my mind. Makes those criticisms a lot less heavy.
Feels more like D&D.
Yeah, exactly. But Borderlands 3, what makes it so above the rest that you can just enjoy it so much?
Well, first of all, in direct comparison, choices aren't a thing in Borderlands games.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of, it is what it is. But it does a very good job of whoever's hosting, that's the quest progression that we're working off of. But if you are working with me, you are getting that quest progression as well. I could be wrong, but I think Borderlands 3, if you skipped ahead because you joined my game for whatever reason, even though I'm ahead of you, and completed quests, if you went back to your game, caught up, I think you then could skip those quests that you'd already done. I could be wrong or have that kind of not put correctly, but basically any progression you're doing together carries for both playthroughs. So it's really just a checklist of like, have they done this? Yes, they have. Have they done this? Yes, they have. Have they done this? Yes, they have. And when you go back to your world, the game still treats you like you have still done that progression. And on top of that, the difficulty difference between players who are working together or not, like if I'm level 30, you're level 10, you know, the game curves the difficulty for you to make it to where you're not getting your fucking teeth kicked in. And vice versa, if I'm level 30 and working in a level 10 world, the game curves it up so that the game is still challenging for me and I'm not just fucking splattering everything across the world. That is the kind of thing that you would want to see from an Elden Ring. Now, I think Elden Ring does a good job of just like tailoring the experience along with your progression. So like I just don't see how it would work if you're 40 hours deep in working environments that my 10-hour deep character is not working in yet. I don't see how you could possibly make it a satisfying experience for me to join your game.
I feel like they do, like, similar to what you're saying with Borderlands 3, make it to where if you join in someone's world, you're going to be scaled to their stuff.
But again, Borderlands is a game where what you are currently doing doesn't matter so much. You like what are you in for a Borderlands game for? You're in for, we're shooting guns, we're having fun, it's a good gameplay loop. We're getting more powerful and unlocking abilities, right? Mm-hmm. That is kind of what a FromSoft game is kind of like, but it is the tailored experience of becoming more powerful alongside the level design, alongside the world design, alongside the enemy design, and so forth. Borderlands has a little bit of freedom in just the mass amounts of quests that are in that game. There's hundreds of quests in that game, and you can tackle them, main quest aside, you can kind of tackle them in whatever order you want as long as you're there, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Elden Ring, you gotta beat Margit to get to Godfrey, to get to God, like it goes on that way, right? Like, and there's some looseness to that. You can go and fight 10 other bosses before fighting him, or you can fight those 10 bosses after fighting him, and that doesn't really matter. But the big guys, the ones that matter, you're probably gonna fight them all in the same order, or at least a similar order. You know what I mean? So it's just, so they are tailoring those boss fight designs to be connected to where they believe player progression is going to be. And if not, then go fuck off and grind and come back.
And when you say things like that, it really shows they would have to frame a lot of the game around a multiplayer element, like they're talking about here, rather than just be something that's kind of tacked on as it has been.
I think it gets tricky. I understand the want to do it in a co-op, seamless world, open world game, but I think that's where it gets the most tricky. A game like an Armored Core 6 or even a Sekiro, I think works in its favor a lot better. One, Armored Core 6 is mission-based, so we can just kind of pick and choose the missions that we want to do in the order that they are available to us, and that kind of just works that way. You, of course, have to change some fundamental game design stuff to accommodate for a second player, but it would just kind of work in that way. A Sekiro or a Bloodborne even, I think you would need to have a different mode. You would need to, harken back to the days of old of like, well, this is the main campaign that you're here for, but here's also a fun, shorter co-op experience, a co-op campaign that you're here for as well. Or here are some missions, or here's a mode where it's a boss rush mode with two of us kind of going through. But again, how do you balance cooperative play like this that doesn't break boss design? Because that's why you're there, in terms of who has aggro, how aggro is grabbed. I mean, undoubtedly, when you grab a bunch of summons and stuff for your Elden Ring boss, the game kind of turns pretty easy because you're the one doing all the damage and your summons are pulling all the attention and they're taking damage better than you can. So it's like, all right, well, yeah, I'm going to bring the summons in. I'm going to do all the damage, back the fuck off, wait for him to get aggroed on him, and then do more damage. Like, that's just kind of how that gameplay loop works. So, like, how do you accommodate that in a co-op setting? It gets tricky. They have enough experience to figure it out.
Yeah, and we'll see if they actually do implement it in the first place. This could all just be thoughts they have, and then when they try to put it into practice, they say, it doesn't work.
And if that's the world we end up living in, okay, that's what mods are for.
Yeah, this is a game that lives and breathes on and on down the years through mods.
Yeah, so very, very exciting times. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it for your Two Penny Gamescast episode 204. Thank you so much for listening. Let us know down in the comments below about everything we talked about today and something else you would like us to talk about in next week's episode. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow us on Twitch and all of our social media links, including our TikToks, down in the description down below. And until next time, have a great time. Connor, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye and have a great day.